This was actually an incredible start to the NDTV Defence Summit because we've had the highest man in our defence setup, the Raksha Mantri. We've had the Defence Secretary, the man who executes a lot of that policy. You couldn't have asked better than the Vice Chief of the Air Staff, who's just off a Sarvottam Yudh Seva medal, provide very, very specific takeaways from a warfighter's perspective. And I think that clears the decks so beautifully for this conversation that I'm privileged to moderate here at the summit, because this is about industry. And I don't think we've been at a more crucial juncture, a more promising juncture, more transformational juncture as far as what Indian defense industry not only has achieved, but is going to achieve going forward. But for that, we need a clear roadmap, we need clarity of purpose, and we also need certain assurances from those who really make the decisions. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for being on this panel. Good to see you all. The mood is upbeat, especially after Air Marshal Tiwari's presentation, which we're going to pick up on because it's difficult to ignore some of the very specific things he said. And I imagine all of your work very much involves such specific conversations with the customer. Those who are actually doing the things, taking the things that your amazing companies and organizations create and putting them to the use that they were built for. So thank you very much once again for the service that all of your organizations and companies have done, because we do know that they did play a role in what we've just seen in Operation Sindoor. So thank you for that. Mr. Priyadarshi, I'd like to start off with you to sort of lay the groundwork for us. We've got this incredible crucible called Operation Sindoor, which was a test case, but it was so much more than that. From an industry perspective, can you lay out the contours of how industry not only played an incredibly important role, but the big takeaways for what the next transformation is going to be and what the expectations are? Sir.
Thank you, Shiv, and thanks to NDTV too. Look, I'm probably the outlier in this wonderful panel you have. You've got people who are in the defense production sector, and I'm just the head of a very small infant think tank. But think tanks have an advantage. We can be blunt, and we must be blunt, and we can actually form the bridge between conveying the concerns of industry to government, and then really push government, not as an interested party, but as a think tank representing the defense sector as a whole, to ensure some of those changes. Now, just as the basis, and this has been said in more than one way, India's defense needs are really multidimensional. They are huge. You look at land, sea, air. You just look at it. I mean, they are huge. And genuinely for that, you need three partners working very, very closely together. You need the Indian private sector, absolutely essential. You need the public sector, absolutely. They've been here for a long time. You need them there. And you need government policy. Now, each one, when you speak to, and the interesting thing that we did at our think tank, Chintan, if you go to any officer, without a pen, without a paper, and without a telephone to record anything, you get some wonderfully, informal views. And having been a bureaucrat earlier, I think we did succeed in getting some very interesting insights from all three sectors. Let me tell you, this whole perception is such an important thing. I was walking into this hall, I was wearing a bit of blue, and there was someone at the entrance which asked me, "Oh, sir, are you from the Air Force? Have you retired from the Air Force?" No, nothing to do with Air Force, but that's a perception. Similarly, in government, there is a perception, and I have said, and I'll borrow Ashish's term from the previous session, with deference to a lot of bureaucrats, giving an order to the public sectors is the easy way out. It's not probably the best way out, it's not most the optimum way out, it is by far, and I'm being blunt, it is the easy way out. So if you are asking me, what is the way ahead? There are 5 or 6 very, very important things that the government must do. Clearly, and I'm now just not looking from the perspective of the private sector manufacturing within India, which they must, but also in terms of whatever we procure. Not everything is going to be done here. And both these arms, the left and right, have to be much, much more smoothened. There are immense delays for various reasons, some of them probably justifiable, but others not justifiable, of delays in procurement. And I think that really has to be completely overcome. Similarly, if you ask these gentlemen, I'm sure they will list out, and maybe then I can come in at the end, there are such a large number of barriers they face. I'll tell you only one. Suppose, and this was mentioned right at the end by the Vice Chief, that we are not just producing ourselves, we're producing for the world. And trust me, I haven't spoken to any three of these in the last, never. Ashish, yes, I've met before. One of the biggest problems, sir, we have is, you get a defense contract, try getting permission for it. Just try getting permission to export that. By the time all the clearances from the different ministries come, just a small suggestion. Why can't we have a list of arms and a list of countries to which these can be sent? It's blanket clear. You win a tender in that particular arm, you do not have to go there. Sure, you want an exception to that list. So there are a large number. And just two other points I make, because look, defense manufacturing, especially from the perspective of Viksit Bharat, is not the big guys alone. We've got to focus on the backward linkages being provided by the MSME sector, by the SME sector. And I think there is this wrong notion, like I said, about perception, that the defense sector does not need financial help. Oh, they're making a lot of money. Completely wrong. You do need financial assistance for the defense sector, from the big guys to the middle guys to these small guys. You need viability gap funding. So there is a lot that needs to be done. But as a think tank today, I'm probably here more to take notes and then come up with a white paper for the government.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. Pradarshi, because the three companies represented here are already doing that incredible thing of plugging into the global supply chain, and they've got incredible experience of doing all that. And while we're on the topic of the warfighter, if you'll permit me, General Prateek Sharma is here, the General Officer Commanding-in-Chief of the Northern Command. So here at the NDTV Defence Summit, I want to say this isn't just about industry or policymakers. We've got real warfighters among us. Thank you very much for being here with us, and thank you for your service, General Sharma. Great to see you here, and can't wait for your presentation as well. Now returning to it, Mr. Rajvanshi, I'd like to come to you now. The entire idea of clarity, the word clarity is overused sometimes. We've had Operation Sindoor now. Has that thrown up a greater deal of clarity as far as expectations from industry are concerned? Not only in terms of what you need to do, but in terms of the way forward, procurement, etc.
Yeah, see, three things which came out of Operation Sindoor. One is there's a lot more collaboration and an open dialogue which is happening between the customers and the industry. So a degree of distrust which was there earlier has actually vanished. And it's almost like coming together for a single mission and having a conversation how the future is going to pan out, number one. Number two, it's very clear, and what Vice Chief mentioned, the last war is not a reflection of the next war. Yeah, so we are absolutely entering a domain which is going to evolve on a daily basis. So assuming a technology being inducted is going to stay for the next 20 years is passé. Yeah, so how we also shape our own talent base, how we shape our own strategy has to work hand in hand with our customers, because assuming I'm going to make an AK today and will be used for the next 40 years is absolutely bad. Yeah. Number three, I think it's also giving some inputs to the customer, what we discussed in the previous session, that the people we are training and the people we are hiring and the people on the front line, yeah, how they're going to imbibe some of these technology-driven solutions will also evolve. Yeah, so if you look at all these three fronts, there's ample work which needs to be done in the coming years.
And the anticipation for that alignment is actually the most crucial thing in my view going forward. Mr. Ramchandani, Larsen & Toubro is the private sector's old war horse. It has practically unparalleled experience when it comes to just the sheer longevity of its activity in the defense space. from conventional to strategic systems across the board. Your perspective, sir, at this crucial juncture, in terms of the importance of partnerships, your organization has unrivaled experience in interfacing with the DRDO, partnering with PSUs, innovating yourself as well. What is that sweet spot? Give us your perspective.
So Shiv, as you said, for us it's been a long journey, and we've learned our ropes much before the industry was really privatized. Licensing of defense production started only in 2001, but we worked with DRDO, right from the 80s, and we've learned the ropes with that. Like you said, the need for collaboration today is much more than ever, in terms of that the landscape is changing so fast. If we really want to industrialize and leapfrog, we need to put the entire ecosystem together. And the ecosystem consists of R&D elements, it consists of manufacturing elements, it consists of operational elements, maintenance. It requires innovation because the entire landscape is changing. And now all that is impossible for any single entity to do. And therefore it's very important as to how you work together. For us, it is, we've always looked at, as we've grown in the sector, we've looked at creating an ecosystem around us. And whether it is MSMEs, that was an important part. Whether it is R&D and academia, we work with them. Whether it is the PSUs, and even today, for example, when we look at some of the artillery systems, we are happy to work with the erstwhile ordnance factories, using their production capabilities in ordnance, etc., and integrating it with more modern weapon systems. So the entire gamut is there, and of course what is unfolding now is that wonderful world of startups and innovators, whom we have to bring into our fold, and who are also very crucial for what is going to happen in the future. Yeah. And companies like ours need to engage with them, which is what we do, whether it is supporting them and giving them some kind of industrial drive, or it is investing into them, or co-developing technologies. It's all of that. So I think partnerships are very important. As a nation, we need to collaborate and build an ecosystem that will create that industrial base that is required for, the security of the nation.
Mr. Tungar, the Bharat Forge, the Kalyani Group, have had recent successes in terms of orders, the big word orders that we talk about. It's something that needs to be given a great deal of importance, because ultimately these are companies. There are strategic objectives that we're talking about. There is a great deal of R&D that happens at your companies as well. The recent big artillery deal that was awarded to your company is one such. And a level playing field with the PSUs has always been an ideal that the private sector has been looking at. Is that battle over? How far are we from that level playing field? Because if we are going to talk about an Indian defense backbone, industrial backbone, then that level playing field becomes very important.
Absolutely. Firstly, Shiv, congratulations to you and the entire NDTV team. I think it's absolutely timely that we're having this conversation. I mean, we had inflection points before, and now with Operation Sindoor, I think it's as clear now that you can't really live in silos. You'll have to actually break them down. I think COVID was one interesting time when we actually could make a vaccine. And that mission mode is exactly what is required today, because, if you look at today, the technology is changing every 3 years. And if your acquisition cycle is going to be 7 years, then you have 3 generation old technology coming in. R&D, of course, I think the biggest requirement for this country to create the backbone is to have its own technology and IP. And what we're talking today is collaborating in terms of looking at the legacy, the old systems, the hard power, actually connect with the soft power
of India, plus the ability to connect all of this up and work. I mean, what we saw from Air Marshal's whole presentation was the fact that we could connect up multiple systems, have a common situational picture, and deal with it. Now, the need for level playing field, I guess the challenge is there has to be one trust, and I think all speakers spoke about it. The fact that there has to be collaboration that has to happen literally on a daily basis, where you're looking at a program to happen. And there, investment that people do, be it people, manpower, work, and even the government does. The challenge is today we are spending just 0.45% of our government spend on defense R&D. Now that is not going to sustain. We'll have to look at a far larger engagement from the government, because at the end of the day, defense systems buyer is the government. So, and by the way, interestingly, they are the market and they're the market maker. And that role they will have to play in the way things will happen tomorrow. Level playing field, essentially, a lot of battles have been fought and dealt with, especially with foreign OEMs part of the story. I think 2016, especially after 2020 and 2022, is when we have really looked at Indian, companies contributing to deliveries. Now, the challenge between defense PSUs and private sector, I guess the government will have to take that call and ensure that everybody is given an opportunity to play. If somebody is not able to meet it, it's a different discussion. But creating IP, technology, spending money on R&D, I mean, I'll give you an example. We started about 15 years back. For 12 years, we had no orders. We were just investing in creating. And today, we have 10 artillery platforms. Now, whether they are applicable, usable, innovative, that's a different conversation. But the point remains is you will have to stay invested. You need to have that staying power in the game. And I think that resilience we've seen from the industry. See, sovereign's hard power also will make a difference. The defense exports is another play that helps in creating that whole story. So it's a combination of a lot of things, not just one, so to speak.
Ashish, bringing you back in, I want to, this round to be specifically prescriptive. We've heard the Defense Secretary and the Raksha Mantri speak. Assurances have been made. The Defense Secretary went into, very, very tiny specifics of what the situation is and what is being promised and what they're working on as well. What would you say are your three points from your wish list, from a policy perspective, that can energize the next step for a company like yours?
See, the first most important point on the policy is the long-term capability roadmap. What we have witnessed in the last 10 years is the volatility in terms of a requirement existing today and vanishing tomorrow. And it's understandable because of the evolving needs, what's happening in the domain of warfare, but should not be driven by the whims and fancies of the person sitting on the table. So having clarity of how the next 10 years will look like, with the key priorities coming from Army, Navy, Air Force, will actually set the direction for the industry also. That's number one. Number two, we are just embarking on this journey of Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think we need to be given a little bit of time in terms of confidence to build the ecosystem ground up. And opening up the sector again to the global OEM too soon, too fast, in the name of global buy, filling up the inventory, we are going to kill the whole Atmanirbhar Bharat initiative. So there's already a conversation that should we be reaching out to the global partners and giving relaxation on Make in India, I think should not happen. Because even the Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Defense Minister are very clear that the only way to Atmanirbharta is to push self-sufficiency. It may take some time. We may not be perfect. We are going to make errors. We may not be providing the perfect solution to our customer. But if we take a step back, we are absolutely going into the deep hole. And the third most important is taking any contract or any program which we start to the closure. So the way we have in private sector, the consequence management and accountability of a DAC approval coming to a contract, but then what happens subsequently, no one knows. So many times RFP comes out, RFI comes out, RFP comes out, but there's no contract award which happens. So a very strong governance to be put in place, which is actually monitoring and managing, guys, what you are committing or what you are promising is resulting into a finish line. So.
Mr. Ramchandani, same question to you. 3 prescriptive suggestions. Given L&T's long experience in the field as well, I'm sure, there are many more avenues for improvement. What would you say?
So the first thing that I would say is that speed up procurement. I think that's essential for the growth of the industry, and it's a critical need. A lot has been done in that direction, but at the end of the day, defense procurement is still a bureaucratic process. We need to take stock of how long it takes from the time an acceptance of necessity is made till the time a contract is awarded. And there has to be accountability to this. So there have to be deadlines, that look, if this is an acceptance of necessity, within 18 months a contract should be placed, or 24 months a contract should be placed, and people should be accountable for that. So I think that's, we need to oil up the system to make it happen, and that will spur up the industry to a great extent. The second is the involvement of the industry in R&D and the patience funding, the viability gap funding, the risk funding for R&D. And I think though a lot of schemes have been worked out, and we have this deep tech funds, and you have the IDEX and all of that. But even today, when we participate in large platform programs, the investments are significant. You have the so-called no cost, no commitment system of procurement, which really means that every time we want to build a platform, we have to invest into it. And it costs a lot to develop a platform, to test a platform, to get it inducted. So there needs to be some kind of way by which capital can flow into this, and it makes us more open to taking risks, more aggressive in pursuing opportunities. So I would say the second reform would be that. And the third one would be on quality systems. So one is, there is no doubt that defense equipment has to meet the highest levels of quality and reliability. But I would say somewhere our systems are fairly archaic, and they really haven't evolved to the level of digital inspections, the kind of technology moves that are happening that can speed up the entire quality assurance system, which works along with the production ecosystem. So typically, the production time to the quality control time are comparable today, and we need to shrink that. The entire quality control process should be embedded into manufacturing, and technology could be used to speed up that. So these are some of my thoughts.
No, very interesting, and they are very specific as well. Mr. Tungar, three specific prescriptions for the policymakers.
So after two people who have spoken who have been in the industry, it's a very difficult one to...
I'm sure many of them overlap as well.
Yeah, of course, there is overlap. I'll probably take a different aspect of it. The first one is, today we actually spend pretty less when it comes to R&D itself as government's funding. I mean, 0.45% of our entire spend is actually nothing when you want to create technology and IP. The second part to that, and it's the same suggestion, is that today we talk about IDEX, we talk about Aditi, we talk about the issue, the way we are trying to get MSMEs and startups into the game. The challenge is we're giving them 1.5 crores or 5 crores, but we expect them to put the equal amount from themselves. They don't have enough money to play that working capital game. Putting that kind of money into a program is one challenge. So maybe we need to create an Atmanirbhar bank or fund them fully. A 3 crore or a 10 crore investment for Government of India. And by the way, IDEX certainly does have a very good system of selecting which solution to take. So that process is good. It's about funding. I think we can really change that entire MSME and startup game to really perform. That's the first one. The second one, today our procurement system is like my grandmother. She used to go and when she used to buy even a matka, she used to bajao it to ensure. So the whole system is fail-safe, which means we will want to try it in every terrain. We want to take it to every altitude. We want to see all temperature ranges. Why? Because what we buy will meet our requirement. The problem is, with technology changing every 3 years, or generationally changing 3 years, if you end up doing that, we need to change the policy from fail safe to fail fast, because it will have to become iterative. The challenge again is, if a company doesn't perform, our process ends up doing blacklisting. We'll have to actually figure out how do we deal with somebody failing. Because when you're talking about systems that are going to integrate, today, I don't know how many Cs have got added to that C4ISR. So the challenge is we're going to talk about collaboration and everything else. I think we're going to fail. And that process needs to be done faster. That's the second suggestion in terms of how do we change. It has to be a fundamental change to how we procure. It cannot be the same process. The third, of course, is finally at the end of the day, these are all companies who have to answer their shareholders. So finally, orders matter, cash matters, money matters. And we have to be conscious of it. And that is the challenge that as a country we need to look at from a psyche of how do we want to really reward and what do we want to reward. So from that perspective, I think if we can just deal with that, we should be probably able to get in the next 5 years a very different picture.
Before I end with Mr. Priyadarshi, I want to squeeze in a quick one with Ashish. Do you see a bigger premium right now on R&D and innovation in the private sector? Is it visible?
Absolutely. See, one of the most important things we need to appreciate in self-sufficiency is we need to own the core. And owning the core could be a seeker technology, the warhead, it could be the propulsion, it could be the propellant, not just the casing and the structure. So if you're talking about a true path to Atmanirbharta, it cannot be just a build to print or a build to spec. It has to be driven through core R&D, which is a function between industry, academia, and the customer, which needs to happen. And whether it's through IDEX or any other means, the companies which are going to crack this code are actually going to be a multi-billion-dollar opportunity rather than just replicating what's happening in the global market. So, yeah.
Mr. Priyadarshi, we'll end with you. Are you happy with what you've heard from a think tank perspective, aligned with what you expect from the government? Final word from you, sir.
I'm delighted. I mean, not just happy, I'm delighted at the richness of the suggestions which have come through. But, you want to make something, and really, you want to make the government act, you have to do two things. One is place all these suggestions with a long-term objective. That's your mandate, that becomes your mantra, then all these suggestions fit in. And based on what has been said, that mantra should be, we must create, a globally competitive private sector in India, geared totally towards Atma Bharat, but equally for supplying to the world. You put that in, then all this flows in. One other point, and all these will come in. Earlier, when you asked, to qualify reforms, you had some short term, some medium term, some long term. I think for the defense sector, there needs to be just two categories, immediate and short term. Yeah. You cannot even wait for these reforms to go into the medium term. So focus on the immediate, focus on the short term. And the final point, don't just make reforms which are, in the public policy domain. I will absolutely, very strongly advocate for what I would like to call potential success matrices. There's no point of reforms unless they go, things like, what is the time to contract for private players in defense contracts? What is the time taken? What is the time to license? If that is not reduced in, let's say, 18 months by an X percentage, then we're not doing a job. Similarly, you talked a lot about R&D. We should have a specific comp saying R&D intensity, SPV over comp, as a percentage of turnover. But finally, also things like what are the number of domestically produced subsystems achieving international standards? And the list is there. Reforms, immediate, avoid reforms, avoid a committee kind of exploration, just goes into the pipeline. Think of it as immediate, think of it as one group, whether the government or the public sector or the private sector.
So there is a path ahead that needs to be navigated. The very, very valuable lessons from Operation Sindoor are there. The inclination is there, like we've heard from the leaders and the policymakers today. And I can assure you that all of your words, of course, are reaching all of them through the NDTV Defence Summit. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Very, very specific, very prescriptive, and it gives us a sense of what we can expect going forward. Thank you very much. Thank you.